faith stories,
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
fishing memories.
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish, I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there and I'm like, we're catching slot snook. And this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
Meaningful conversations.
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
Positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Randolph.
And his timing is perfect. We might not always agree with it, and we might not always understand it at the moment.
Bring you interviews with some amazing guests from the fishing community and discuss all things to do with fishing and their faith. Welcome to the faith.
Hey guys, welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Robert Randolph, and usually you don't hear my voice first because usually that's Cam Steele, but he is off tonight. He may be able to swing in here a little bit later, but rolling solo on this one tonight. Got a good one lined up for you. Definitely got a guest that's going to be able to drop a lot of fishing knowledge. So just kind of an update on where we're at. I think me and Cam both are fishing a local tournament this weekend. See if I can get some redemption from Lake Murray. I think I got a couple things figured out on old Sharon Harris, and I'm looking there probably be about 50 or 60 kayaks in this. So it's going to be fun this is our first local event of the season. So looking forward to seeing everybody at that, seeing how they're doing. A few of us made the trip a couple weeks ago to fish the Bassmaster. So there were 6 of us that camped at that, and we all had a great time. So looking forward to getting the local trail started back. Been doing a little bit of pre-fishing. So I went last Saturday, and Harris is my home lake, so you would think I would do pretty good on that. But last Saturday, I don't even know if I got a bite, and went back yesterday afternoon, which was that was on a Tuesday afternoon, and ran a couple more spots that I thought might be holding some fish, and they were. So I only caught 2. I probably could have caught a lot more, but so close to being in the tournament time. So hopefully those fish will hold in there, and I can get a good solid bag. It's probably going to take 90 to 95 inches probably to win that, but hopefully those fish will still be there this Saturday, and we'll get a good showing for this first local tournament. That's really about all, because we'll see if Cam jumps in here. We'll kind of ask him, see what he's been doing this week. I know that I saw him post a few pictures. I'm not sure if he was fishing Harris or if he went to another one of his favorite lakes around Raleigh. But if he jumps in here, we'll get with him with that. We're going to go ahead and roll an ad. And coming up after the ad, we'll have Mr. Jody Queen. So you guys stay tuned.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on the water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or visit them online at shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
All right. You guys welcome Mr. Jody Queen. Jody, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. So we were talking a little bit, on the pre-show, and I know you're right in the middle of getting ready for a tournament, but we've got a lot of listeners that are on the boat side, a lot of listeners that don't even do tournaments. So everybody, we got a ton of listeners that kayak fish because that's what me and Cam are both into. But for
Yeah.
those guys that maybe don't kayak fish, introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about Jody Queen.
Well, there's pretty much what you see is what you get with me. I'm just an old fart, but no, I'm from West Virginia. I grew up fishing in the streams there in West Virginia, and mostly a river fisherman all my life, and just spent a lot of time in the water wade fishing. And a few years ago, I was actually on the New River, and the DNR had a program back then where they would their officers would be on the water in kayaks, and they would pull up to the banks and check license and stuff, and get people, when they were wade fishing, check their license. And that really, when I got checked, that's what really got me into thinking I want a kayak. And this was about 9 years ago. And I got my first kayak, and just since then I've never looked back. So when I first got into this, the kayak scene was just getting started, and all the companies hadn't really started making products just for kayaks, and there's a lot of DIY. And I look back, man, and we have come so far. It's just amazing how far this sport has come in such a short time, and we're still in our infancy. There's a lot to be done out there. It's not saturated at all, really.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's amazing to me that these companies are coming out with products now, and you look at what they're coming out with, and it's like, dang, and I agree with you. There's so much more, innovation to be done. There's so many other people that can easily get into this sport. It's a lot lower entry fee than the boat side of it. That's kind of where I come from. I grew up. My dad always had a boat, and we fished as much as he would take me. I would go, but
absolutely.
Grew up and had a boat, and then I was duck hunting out of kayaks, and I got lazy. I didn't want to take the boat one day, and I just threw the duck hunting kayak in the back of the truck and went to a local lake. And honestly, for me, being on the water, catching the fish instead of in the boat, did it for me. It's just something about being at the same, the water level and catching those fish, that really, I liked it better than the boat. So I sold the boat a few years back and jumped into the kayak deal, and I enjoy it. So I know, for those of you that don't know, and I know Jody is pretty humble, but he's probably I'm going to say, in the top echelon of kayak fishermen or anglers, period. Great river fisherman. And basically, if you ask any of these kayak guys, hey, give me a top 3 all-time kayak anglers, Jody's going to be in that conversation, every time. And so he's not going to come out and say that, but I'll say it for him. And, if he enters a tournament, he's going to figure out a way to catch fish. And if you ever get a chance to listen to him talk about fishing, or go to any seminars, or he does some Bass University stuff too. So there's a whole array of stuff that Jody does that he's probably going to be too humble, but I'm going to try to drag some of it out of him tonight.
I like to, I've always been forthcoming with information. I love to see people catch fish. So, and some of my friends get mad at me because I drop a lot of there are no secrets. There's nothing new under the sun, as they say, but I just like to see people catch fish, and you know what? It makes me compete a little harder if somebody knows what I'm doing. So, hey, it is what it is. And, I just want to be consistent. That's all I shoot for. I would like to win everyone that I enter, but it doesn't happen that way. So, but I try to cash a check, and it keeps me rolling. That pays my entry fees and just it keeps me in it, So I want that consistency rather than just winning one every now and then and not placing in 10 in a row and then just winning another one. I would just rather be in that top 10 if I can do that. To me, that's the most important thing, and having fun on the water, So it's this sport you talked about being down low to the water. I mean, it's different in that there's different levels. That, like you said, I mean, you can buy a cheap kayak, get out there and catch big fish in it. You don't need all the bells and whistles. You don't need all that stuff. But when you're competing like we do, you got to have that stuff to stay relevant in the sport. And what's really interesting when we're talking about how the sport's evolved is, have you noticed that almost anything that comes out for a boat, they're making ways to use those products on a kayak now because they've come that far.
Absolutely.
So, the forward-facing sonars and the 12-inch units, and now we got, consoles on our boats where we can run 2 units if we want to. And it's a lot of crossover. Mm-hmm. And so, the things that are in the boat world aren't out of reach for us competitors, that are really serious and want to get out there and do these national trails. There's those products are there for us too. So that creates, it creates jobs, it creates, engineering feats, and it's all interchangeable now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you totally. Anytime you see something, that comes out on the boat, they are figuring out how to get that on a kayak, because just like you said, if you're going to compete and I'll enter some national tournaments, but I don't compete at them. I just go to have more fun than I do thinking I'm going to walk out of there with a check. But if something comes close, I'll throw my name in there just because you never can tell,
Exactly.
So, but you go and you look at, people are running power poles, people are running multi screens on there. A lot of people running 2. I've seen a couple people with 3. I've seen some people with multiple live transducers. They're starting to run that little rear side, the side view, is coming into play.
So what happened to me this year, Robert? I was fishing a tournament, my first tournament of the year, and I was pre-fishing for it. It was the Harris Chain down in Florida. And the day before the tournament, I was going out and just checking to make sure, everything was cool. My fish were still there, and I was fishing a big grass bed area, and I was using the forward-facing sonar because I would find these grass beds and I would find the edges, and then I would cast beyond them when I was pulling my bait back into them. Those fish were tucked tight into them. And if you get on the grass bed and pull back into them, your bait gets into them a lot tighter, so those fish can see it and hit it. Well, the day before the tournament started, I lost my forward-facing sonar. It just quit.
Oh,
and that's what I said. I was like, oh, now I have predicated my whole tournament on having this system for this pattern, and I was like, what am I going to do? But I still don't have it. I've fished the last 3 tournaments without it, and I found that all that knowledge that I built growing up and competing without it, it all started coming back, and it was really sharpening my skills with my graph again. It's really making me go back and remember all that stuff, and I'm kind of enjoying it. It's really giving me a chance to go back and remember all that stuff that I used to do before all this stuff came along. I can remember using a jig, a heavy jig, to figure out how deep a ledge was. I mean, those days, and it's really, I'm really enjoying it, and I've been finishing just fine without it. So there's times when I miss it. I think the biggest thing about forward-facing sonar for me personally, it's just a big time saver. You know, right now, if I've got my size scans on, I'm running flats or running edges, and I'm a pile of boulders or a brush pile. You got to drop the waypoint, and then you go back and sit over top of it and run over it with your down scan and see if there's fish on it. With forward-facing sonar, you pull up to it, and if there's fish on it, you know it right away. So it's, for me, more than anything, it's just a big time saver. You know.
So you're using that to just eliminate water faster.
Exactly.
Basically, when, like, if you're going to a tournament to pre-fish 3 or 4 days, you can just cover that much more water that much faster, and then obviously it's going to help you see how those fish are reacting to your baits, and to what I'll be 50 this month, so what I call the older generation of anglers that are out there that we, we're grateful when we had 2D sonar come out and we could see the arcs on there rather than just having a flasher on the boat, and we could see the arcs on there, and then we learned how to jig, and we could see our jig on there, and then we still built all this knowledge of growing up. I remember my mom teaching me about hook size, and we were creek fishing for these little fish. And of course I was a little kid and put this big old hook on there, probably for, a plastic worm. And, but then we started putting the right size hooks on there, started catching fish, but we gain all this knowledge through our life. And then a lot of times now I feel like we're shortcutting it with the electronics, but I think the great anglers are going to just build on top of that knowledge that you've built up for so long. Right. And I think now we see the behavior when we present baits to those fish, and it adds a whole new dimension, which is exciting. I'm not somebody that's really against the forward or the live sonar, forward facing or whatever, but I do think probably at some point they're going to have to say this, you can only have this number of transducers or screens or at some point, because I looked at the last elite tournament. Yeah. The last elite tournament, I think it was Chris Zaldane, and I looked at his dashboard, and there's just screens all around, and it's like a cockpit of the space shuttle or something. There's so many screens, and you don't want to get it to where, and me and Cam had talked about this before, to where there's just screens all around the boat, and that's all you're looking at.
Screens and transducers.
Right. Yeah. So
some of these guys had about $50,000 worth of that.
That's crazy.
The fear that I have with forward-facing sonar, I'm not against it. I'll just tell you right now, I'm not against forward-facing sonar. But here's the thing: I don't want all the new anglers that are coming in to be taught just how to use forward-facing sonar to catch their fish, because there are anglers in the world who have all this knowledge and all this stuff to share. And if you're only used to using forward-facing sonar and don't know all the other stuff, what happens when you're at a tournament and your forward-facing goes out, or something happens and you can't use it, or then you're lost. But if we pass this our knowledge onto the younger generation and they learn it, then they're not going to be lost without having that one tool. I just don't want them to be just one tool for everyone to use that are coming into the sport right now.
Yeah, and I think I think that's the key, is just to keep passing on the knowledge, keep getting people out there in the outdoors, and that's what kayak fishing is so appealing to people, because it's the low cost of entry. I know I was pre-fishing on the last 2 times. I pre-fished on Saturday, and I pre-fished yesterday for this tournament coming up on this coming Saturday. And both times I saw new anglers at the ramps, and you can normally tell, because one guy had a bona fide Power 129, but there was nothing on it. It was just the kayak, and I went up and I introduced myself and asked him, "Hey, you fishing the tournament on?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's my first one." I was like, "Man, you got a really nice kayak, And he was car topping the Bonafide P129,
Yeah.
and I helped him get it on top of his car because I was like, and he was like, oh, I can do it. I said, oh, I know. I mean, I'm here. I'll help you put it up there. I said, I've had the car topple before, and but you know, it's great to see these new people, and they're going out and
Love it.
yeah, and they're getting into it, and so it'll be interesting because it wasn't that long ago. I was the same way. I mean,
we were all there.
Yeah.
We're all there.
Yeah, so it's exciting to see the new people getting into the sport, and so I know you said you fished Harris Chain, and I know you were probably at Lake Murray for I know you were there just for the KBF. Did you fish both of those weekends, the Bassmaster and then the KBF as well?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about those two tournaments because man, I struggled at the Bassmaster. I caught some fish, and you know, so I went down on Thursday. I left from Raleigh. It's about a 3.5 hour drive. So I left about 4 a.m. Thursday morning, pre-fish Thursday and Friday. I caught some on some rocky points, probably 12 to 20 foot of water cranking. But, you know, I couldn't catch them when Saturday rolled around, and ended up in some, and I was about mid lake close to Dreer Island. That's where we camped, and you know, that was clear water. I like dirtier water better, and I should have just moved to dirtier water, and I just had it in my head I was going to fish that, and it wasn't clear, but it was probably 1.5 foot, 2 foot visibility where I was at, and I finally moved a little shallower because I got mad about 1:30 or 2. I still hadn't caught any fish, and moved up on some wood and started flipping. And probably hooked a 4 or 5 pounder, got him to the net, and I didn't get him in the net. He got off, so that was a capper to my Saturday. And but tell us a little bit about your experience down there at the Bassmaster.
So you just told me that you figured it out.
It's too late.
You went shallow and you threw on that wood. That was the ticket.
Yeah.
That's how I caught my fish. I couldn't do it in clear water. I fished in clear water. I did the same thing with the wood. It's not the same. I spent all my time in dirty water, you know, where I could find dirty water. That's where I spent my time. And I was fishing. Most of my fish came from 2 to 4 feet. And, you know, dock post, my biggest producer, though, was ramps. Ramps that came out and dropped into 4 to 6 feet of water. They were either on the sides of them or they were laying on the end of the ramps. That's where I caught most of my fish. Most of my bigger fish came off the ends of the ramps. I caught fish off the dock post too, but the ramps were the ticket for me.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
Murray's a great lake, man. And it was rough for a lot of people, and there were some big fish caught deep out there. I didn't have my forward-facing sonar. And I'm not very much of a deep water person. I grew up fishing shallow. I love the shallow water bite. Mm-hmm. And one thing I can tell you is, if a fish is shallow, he's there for a reason. You know, most of the time he's up there shallow to feed. You know, this time of the year, a lot of times those fish will get out in these channels and they'll stage out there. And the guys with the forward-facing sonar, they can find them out in those channels, and they can, you know, if they can get them activated, they can catch them out there. But the fish, you know, that come into the banks, and especially if the water's muddy, they're going to be close to the bank anyway, or they're going to be up against something. They're going to find anything. They're like us. If I turn the lights off in this room and I can't see nothing, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my hand out and figure out where I'm at.
Yeah, find a wall.
Right. I'm going to find a wall. I'm going to find something that orients me, and fish are the same way, you know? So yeah, man, I for the KBF tournament, I tried fishing some of that clearer water. I think I caught 2 fish on the first day, because they do 2 tournaments on the weekend. I fishing area that had clear water. I caught 2 fish on that first tournament. And then the second day, I didn't even go where I pre-fished or anything. I just, me and my buddy Corey Dreyer, I said, man, let's just go swing for the fences and find some muddy water. And we did, and I come in 5th. So
there you go.
So, I was just throwing there's muddy water baits that work really well. Jackhammer is one of them. I was throwing a black jackhammer, and it's just, that kind of profile, that dark profile works really good in muddy water. But also, I've done really well on white and muddy water. And if I'm throwing white, I'll throw take a spinner bait. And a lot of times I'll take the lead blade off and put on a big thumping, like a number 5 or a 4.5 gold blade on it, Colorado. So you get that thump out of it, when it's come to the water and you watch your rod tip and it's going bang, 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 bang. Mm-hmm. That's what you want in that muddy water with a big spinner bait like that. And I was just bouncing it off of timber, bouncing it off of wood. Again, I caught my fish in 2 to 4 feet, and it's just, the fish are there. You just got to figure out what it is that they want. Let them tell you what they want.
Yeah, and that's the key to it. And I figured out, for me in going to these lakes that I don't know, it takes me probably 4 days to figure it out. A lot of times, it does. It takes me 4 days to figure it out, and so 2022, I went to Toledo Bend, and I went and fished Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then had something figured out. And then Saturday, that wind got so bad I couldn't hold on to my brush pile. I fished it in the morning time, but the wind was horrible. Yep. And kind of threw me off. But I was pretty proud of myself for going to that one. I finished like 100 out of 200, so I was middle ways. But and then did the Susquehanna, which I know is getting up there to where you like to fish the Susquehanna and the New River and all those river fisheries. But
I think one of the hardest things that I've had to learn is knowing when to make adjustments. If something's not working, when do you cross the line and you're trying to force the bite instead of making an adjustment and do something else? We all have our comfort zones. We all have our comfort baits. And, it's hard to say, I caught them on a jackhammer yesterday. I can catch them again today. And then when you're not catching them, you want to keep throwing that jackhammer. Right. You want to keep throwing it. Because you caught them on a day for you. And if I just got to find the fish and get it in front, it's really hard to learn when to make an adjustment. Say, okay, look, this ain't working. I'm going over here. And sometimes it's changing areas. Sometimes it's changing baits. I kid around a lot with my buddy Corey. I told him one time, he's like, man, I ain't catching nothing on a chatterbait. We was down on the Kissimmee chain, and we just wasn't really doing that well on them. We was throwing chatterbaits. And then I just looked at him one day and I said, look, somewhere on every lake in the country, somewhere on that lake is a chatterbait bite. You just got to find it. And we were heading back to the ramp and pretty much gave up on it. And I seen an area that looked just a little bit different and had a different kind of grass in it. And I said, well, let me go over here and check this before we leave. And we got on a chatterbait bite there and absolutely wore them out. So at any given time, there's a place for a spinnerbait, there's a place for a chatterbait, there's a place for a crankbait. Just knowing those areas and knowing when to use them is a big thing to learn, and knowing how to make those adjustments.
Yep. And adjustments, I find myself thinking I'm making an adjustment, but then when I go back and I look back on what I did, like even after, Lake Murray, Bassmasters, I pre-fished Thursday, and I had 3 ramps I was going to Thursday. So I went to ramp A, didn't do any good. Went to ramp B, didn't do any good. Went to ramp C, didn't do any good. And by that time, it's time to go set up the tent, set up the camp, get everything plugged back in for the next day. Mm-hmm. Then I went and fished those Rocky Points with crankbaits on Friday, caught some fish. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. And so then I go back, do the map study, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going this point. Mm-hmm. And then started running that on Saturday and didn't pan out like it did on Friday. Mm-hmm. But what I really should have done after Thursday, even from the 3 ramps Thursday to Friday, looking back on it, I was still in the north middle of the lake, which was clear because where the river runs in, that whole south side and up there was a lot dirtier. I should have said, okay. And I knew that because I'd been looking at the satellite photos.
Right.
I knew what the water looked like on the whole lake. But instead of taking myself out of that and going to a totally different part of the lake and trying that on Friday, I didn't. I stayed in kind of not the same area, but the same type of area, different area, but the same looking water.
Yep.
Looking back on it, I'm like, you should have just switched altogether,
Yep.
And but I think that's just doing tournaments and getting some more stuff under your belt and figuring out. So then I'll know next time, like, okay, this is the plan. If something's not working, is to make a big enough change. People think, and myself included, oh yeah, I'm making adjustments, and then when I go back and look, I'm like, you didn't adjust.
I'm really making that big of adjustment.
Yeah, right. Going to a different ramp doesn't mean you're adjusting, because if you go to a different ramp, but it's the same looking water, you're fishing the same thing.
Right, and that's why when I talk about being in your comfort zone, it's not just with baits. It's also with a structure and cover that you like to fish. You might switch areas, but if you're fishing the same thing, you're pretty much doing the same thing.
Right.
So on day 2 of the KBF tournament, when I tell you there's a chatterbait bite somewhere on every lake at any given time, you just got to find them. I wasn't catching anything on a chatterbait. I wasn't catching anything on it. And I found an area where I thought I could catch them on a chatterbait. It was muddy. It had standing timber in it. It had, grass in it. It had, it had all the things that were perfect for a chatterbait. And it just so happened that, and I was on the totally opposite side of the lake in a place I'd never fished before. And the chatterbait bite was there. So there's that too. I mean, you might, if you're still comfortable throwing that bait, you might just have to find the perfect area to throw that bait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But most of the time it don't work out that way, but it did this time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's shift gears some from the tournaments you've been doing, and I know you're down pre-fishing for the Hobie at Logan Martin. Let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about rods and Cashion rods and the role that you played in developing a lot of their kayak specific rods. I'm actually, I work about a mile from their facility in Sanford, and that's normally what I'm throwing. Is I've got some of the CK rods, I've got some of the Element rods, I've got some of the Icons, and so talk a little bit about that and how that relationship came to be, and maybe a little bit about how much work goes into developing these different rods.
A technique specific rod means just that. Like if you're throwing a crankbait and you need a technique specific rod, they're going to make a crankbait rod. So there's a whole lot of things that go into making sure that the rods that they're building are right. And Cashion, when I first got with Cashion, I think I've been with them for, 4 or 5 years, but the first Cashion rod that I picked up was, I guess it was 7 or 8 years ago. It was a crankbait rod. And there was just something about that rod, when you start using a rod and it just feels right, you get that feeling. It's like, man, I can feel every little tick here, and it fits my hands good. And it takes a team of people to get all of that information together. So Cashion, when they came to Corey Dryers, was the other guy that was in on this, and actually Casey Reed was in on it too. And when they came to us, said, we're going to do some technique-specific kayak rods. Can you tell us what are some of the attributes these rods need to have? By then, I was well known for throwing a chatterbait, and Corey was too. And that was probably one of the biggest things that we wanted when they said, give us a chatterbait rod. We knew immediately what we liked in a chatterbait rod. The drop shot or the shaky head rods that they put out, Casey is like one of the best.
Yes.
I love throwing a shaky head. But I'm usually doing the shallow dock stuff. But man, I have seen him sit on a rock pile for hours and just burn them up on a shaky head. He's got that patience for it, that kind of patience for it. He's a heck of an angler. So when they came to us, we knew we wanted it like the chattergrass rod. We wanted it perfect. And, I was worried that Cashion was going to say, "Hey guys, you're taking too long. I mean, we're waiting to put this out. This thing's got to get on the market. We got to do this." And we never got any of that. None of that. They were with us every step of the way on that rod. And I think it took us like 2 years total to get it right. They sent us like 4 different prototypes, and we talked back and forth on every step of the way to get it right. But we wanted a rod that had a real nice, strong backbone, but we wanted that transition from the tip to the backbone to be quick. So we designed that rod to have a nice, flexible tip, where most rods will have a parabolic bend, for chatterbaits when you're fishing open water. We call it chattergrass rod because it was made for grass. But now once you start using it, I use it everywhere. I use it on rocks. I use it everywhere. But it really excels when you're fishing really heavy grass, like in Guntersville and down in Florida on the Kissimmee chain. But what we wanted to just be able to reel that bait into that grass. And instead of having to yank that bait through there, we wanted that rod to load up. And once that tip loaded up, you had enough backbone and the transition was fast enough to where it would pull that bait out of that grass. And that's where a lot of your strikes come from. And when they got that rod right, I'm telling you, it's just, I've used a lot of different chatterbait rods, but that's the best chatterbait rod, not just because I had a hand in it, but it's just, I've caught so much fish off of that rod and it is the toughest rod I think that I've ever owned. I still have the original prototype when they got it right, and you ought to see it. I have wore the handles off of it, and I've never had an eye on it or anything. And it's an amazing rod. I think John Cruz actually uses the Kayak series Cashion chattergrass rod when he's fishing his tournaments. But I would really like to see him come out with one in the Icon series, just because.
Yeah, I think it would cross over well to the boat world. A lot of boat guys are not going to pick up a kayak rod,
right, because it says kayak on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that they should come out with one. But Cashion was so, they're just a great company. The guys there they're amazing people, and they listen to the anglers when they come out with that whole line. But the crankbait rods that they put out are amazing. I've been using the John Cruz crankbait rod lately. Man, that rod is just, you talking about feeling every little thing, every little bump, anything that lip hits on the bottom, you can feel it. It has great action. And when the fish hit, it plays so well. You rarely have a fish get off, and you know how they are on crankbaits, man.
Oh yeah.
You get one that jumps, and he's going to throw it. But that rod if you use that rod right, fish you can keep them from jumping with it without, it's so, gosh, I don't know the word for it, but I was like fighting the fish today. I caught them on crankbaits today, and I hooked a nice fish, and I was hoping it wouldn't get off because you always do on a crankbait. But when I was fighting that fish, it started to come up, but I eased up on it enough to where it lost interest in jumping and trying to throw it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I still had bend in my rod, which meant I still had tension on
Still had pressure on it.
Still had pressure on that fish. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to jump, I guess." And I got that fish in without it jumping. It was a nice fish, 18 incher.
Oh,
and those, they use that when they're 18 inches, that's all they want to do is jump and throw.
Yes.
So,
yes.
When you have a rod like that, those technique specific rods, and they work that well, you've got something. And you're talking about rods that, man, the Kayak series rods, I think, are $179, and they perform as well as any $300 rod I've ever owned.
I agree too. I've got the CK cranking rod. I've got the chattergrass rod. I'll throw those two all the time. I've got shaky head rod. And then I
Oh,
have
the spinnerbait rod.
yeah.
Man, that spinnerbait rod is awesome.
Yep. I got the
I'm
shaky
falling
head
in love with
rod.
it too.
Yeah, I love it. And then I have I have the CK, the worm and jig rod. I throw it all
Yes.
the time. And then a guy that I work with, he didn't really know he boat fishes, but we talk fishing all the time. And he was like, man, you ought to come look at this worm and jig rod I got. Man, you come check it out. Come to the truck out there at lunch. So I went out there. He's got an Element worm and jig rod. He's like, man, it's the best worm and jig rod I've ever had. And I went by there because I work so close. I'll go by there and get some out of the showroom and, mess around with them, whatever. And I went and started messing with some of those Element rods. I picked up a couple of those just because, man, those things are great too. So I've got
They're
a
great
Ned rod.
rods.
Yeah. And then, I picked up another worm and jig rod. I just wanted to have 2 worm and jig rods. And then, just picked up the Ned rig Element rod to throw my wacky rigs on.
Right.
I don't really Ned rig fish that much, but I do always have a wacky rig Cinco tied on just to throw behind stuff, and that works really well for that as well. So,
have you tried the BFS?
I haven't, but that's probably my next one.
So I just put me a little. I think it's the TV something 70 Daiwa reel on it, and man, I've been throwing crappie jigs on that thing, and
Really?
when the bite is tough, I just throw on some 8-pound test on that thing, and I take it out, and it's always with me, because when it gets tough, and if you want to downsize is one thing, but when you want to really downsize and you still want to throw a bait caster because all the attributes it has,
right,
man, you can't go wrong with them.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I did pick up the Icon spinnerbait rod that they came out with, and I love that rod too. I mean, I was throwing my spinnerbaits on the chattergrass rod actually because I was just double duty in that, and it's a great rod for spinnerbaits. And then they came out with that Icon spinnerbait rod, and I was like, I got to pick up one of those. I love throwing a spinnerbait. So,
all my friends, they asked me, I know probably at least 5 or 6 of them have asked me this question, man. If I could get one rod, what's the best rod that Cashion makes? There's always that guy, and I'm like, dude, go get the multi-purpose.
Oh yeah.
If you don't want to, have 3 or 4 technique specific rods and one that can do just about everything, I love that multi-purpose rod.
Yeah.
It's one of the best swim jig rods I've ever seen. I mean, it's a great swim jig rod. It'll throw a spinnerbait. I have used the Z-Man Mag Fatties, the worms. I've used that. I mean, I've used it, finesse jigs on it. I've used just about everything on that rod. And that, if you don't have a lot of money and you can't afford, a bunch of techniques, that rod is for you. I mean, it will do just about everything and do it well.
Yeah, and that's a great piece of advice. We got a lot of people that listen that just pond fish and not into really the tournament scene, but those multi-purpose rods is what you can throw.
Buzzbait.
You can have it, and yes, exactly. You can throw whatever you want to.
Completely cover the water column with one rod.
Yep. Cut one off one bait, tie on the next one. We get a little bit spoiled because doing tournaments, we just want to reach back and get the next one without having to tie a bunch of stuff on.
That's true.
And I still carry a rod in the back of my truck everywhere I go, and that one gets abused, but so we've covered some of the fishing. You have so much knowledge and so many different avenues we could go down. There's no way we're going to be able to cover it all, but let's jump into a little bit about your faith and tell us about your faith journey and kind of what you believe and how that progressed throughout your life.
Yeah, so I'll start this with years ago. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher. All my uncles were Baptist preachers, and my dad was like the black sheep of the family. I guess he had religion beat into him so much growing up that he just wanted anything except to have that to do with it. But he would still have moments in his life. I can remember growing up where he would get back into church, and then he'd be doing fine for a while, and then he'd go off the deep end again. So, growing up, I always went to church, up to a certain age, and then I started drifting away from it. About 15 years ago, I think it's 15 years ago now, my wife was a rock climber. She climbed, I don't know have you ever heard of Seneca Rocks? It's in West Virginia. It's straight up and down. It's not, she did the whole rappelling thing, and she climbed rocks you couldn't keep her off of rocks. We were up on a hiking trail close to where I live. And I was sitting on a picnic table. She said, I'm going to go up here and climb over here. She's been up there several times, and I just didn't worry about her because she was good at it, and I remember sitting on a picnic table, and I felt it was just a real weird feeling, and I didn't know why I felt that way. I felt something was telling me that something was wrong, and I truly think it was God telling me, get up off your butt and go find her. And I just looked at my buddy and said, man, I'm gonna go look for Vicky. And about that time, a little girl come down the path, and she was frantic and she was crying, and she ran by, and I just looked at my buddy and I said, dude, there's something wrong. And so I went up to the area where she said she was going. And when I got there, there was a woman praying over her. She had fallen 30 feet off of a rock cliff, and on her way down, she'd hit a tree, and somehow she had slid back underneath a rock that was kind of cocked up like this, and she had slid in underneath it. And I knew she was dead, but the woman was saying she was praying with her, and I kind of grabbed her and I just rolled her over on top of me, and just I prayed, and they airlifted her out of there. They took her to Roanoke, and I went to Roanoke, and that hospital is like the trauma hospital on the East Coast. If the president fell and hit his head, that's where they would take him. And I remember going down to the chapel, and this is hard for me to say.
Sorry, take your time.
I would go down to the chapel in the hospital, and the biggest trauma hospital almost on the East Coast. There was nobody there in that chapel praying. And I remember right then, I knew that my connection with God never left me. It just needed a little jump start, And so I spent my time when I wasn't by her bedside praying. And I said, Lord, just give me back something. I asked, it doesn't, whatever that you give me back, I will love her just as much as if she's not normal or whatever. And they were telling me that she wasn't going to walk, or, I was going to have to teach her how to brush her teeth, but she was alive. And I was like, I don't care, just let her pull through this. So I remember leaving the hospital 2 weeks later. She was in a coma for 2 weeks. And long story short, they had to take her and put her in rehab into Princeton. And we had to drive in the back of the ambulance from there to Princeton. I couldn't ride in the ambulance with her, so I drove. But I got there first. And when the ambulance come in to take her out, I was standing there when the doors opened. And when they pulled the gurney out of the back of the ambulance, and the wheels fall down, they lock. And when they fell down and locked, her eyes popped open, and she said, "Am I in Mercer County?" And I said, "Welcome back, baby." And she just, it was a miracle. It was a miracle. The nurses came in a room. They're like, one of them had a toothbrush and a hairbrush. Today we're going to teach you how to do this. God did that for me.
Wow.
And I'm forever grateful. I have a lot of people say, when you're on stage, you don't say anything about God. God already knows how thankful I am. I don't have to bring him into, I do this as a business. I don't have to bring him into that. I don't have to tell people I'm a Christian.
Right.
I just don't. I don't think I should have to. It's my relationship with God. And so I really don't get on stage and say, and I have nothing, don't get me wrong.
I'm with you.
I love to see that. I love to see somebody profess their faith and because there's no denial, but I just don't feel like I'm denying him when I'm up there on stage and I don't mention it. It's because of our relationship. It's my relationship with God. And, I thank him so many times during the day when I'm catching fish. He's probably tired of hearing from me anyway. But, God in our lives it's different for each person. And I'm okay with that. Matt Ball is probably one of the biggest, spiritually for me. He keeps my spirit strong a lot of times, and we rely on each other sometimes. When we get down, we'll kind of call each other, and kind of, vent on each other every now and then, and it helps. But it helps to have someone to talk to and somebody to pray for you. But I think it helps. I think that, prayer is real. It is, I've had things happen in my life that you think there's no coming back from, and you get on these prayer chains in the churches, and when people call you, we're praying for you, our church is praying for you. It does something inside of you. It changes your makeup, or it changes something in you that gives you hope, and when you're talking to people around, they feel that. So it totally changes everything around you. It totally changes your environment. It changes who you are. It changes, the negativity. It takes the negativity away from you. It keeps you positive. It keeps you hopeful. And it also, we have to understand that God gives us, Matt said this really good at the last fellowship meeting we had. God gives us storms. There's storms in our life. There's going to be death. There's going to be sickness. There's going to be all these storms in life. But it's a plan to help you overcome that so that you can pass it on and teach other people how to deal with that. So we have to have that in our life. If everything was peaches and cream, then,
That's right.
It doesn't work that way. We'd become something else. So, having those storms in our lives help us to help other people when that happens to them, getting through those things. And those kind of gifts that you give people they're immeasurable. You can't put a value on them.
I agree. I mean, that's a great story about your wife and how that all transpired, and for you to see that and feel that.
She's a miracle, no doubt.
Yeah,
There was spinal fluid
that's awesome.
coming out of her ears. I mean, it was bad. And my sister, I'll never forget this. She said, "How do you do this day in and day out? How do you do this?" And I'm like, "Do what?" She said, "How can you be so calm around her?" Well, that's the man upstairs. That gives you, if you have faith, you're able to handle those things differently than a lot of people do. But you also don't have a choice. There is no choice to make. Basically, I told her, I said, I don't have a choice. And I said, it's not a choice. There's no choice to make, because it is what it is. And I'm here and I'll do what I have to. But it was, I'm a lucky man. We've been together 33 years.
Man, that's So me and my wife are coming up on, this will be 21 this year. So
Nice.
Yeah. So it's
I'm sorry I got a little long-winded there.
Oh no, you're fine. You're totally fine. That was probably one of the best testimonies and stories that we've had on here, and I had no idea of what you were about to say. I didn't know any of that, and so that was no. You're totally fine. So. We've been on here before and run almost 2 hours because we're having such a good time, but we're gonna move into what's your favorite segment. So
All right.
we got a little sponsor for that. So let me play this, and then we'll do a what's your favorite.
Okay.
It's time for What's Your Favorite, powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. Power that fits in the palm of your hand.
All right. Yeah, Nakwa's sponsoring What's Your Favorite. And so, we'll start out, and it's basically, I don't know, 9 or 10 questions. It's just what's your favorite. So we're going to start out with the first one. And what's your favorite scripture?
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Acts 22, 3, 22. Oh, I can't remember the exact verse. It's Acts 22 something that says, "Why do you wait? Go forth and be baptized." And I think that section right there also is, I am the light of the world. He whosoever believeth in me shall not perish but have everlasting life. That's I love that. Acts is one of my favorite books of the Bible, but that parable there is probably one of my favorites.
All right. So the next one we're gonna go. What's your favorite Bible story?
I think probably. That's a tough one. There's a lot of good ones that I like. I think probably Job.
Yeah.
It's a close call between that one and Jesus calming the storm. But Job was just he had it all. I mean, that poor guy, he went through, and to have that much faith, I just don't know anybody, or I don't know if I could have made it through what he made it through. He had everything put on him.
Yeah, and that's a good one, and that's something to look back on too when we're going through tough times. Yeah. And sometimes I think I'm going through a tough time, and I look
There's
at
always
it,
somebody got a tougher time going on.
Yeah, that's right. So these next two questions are a little bit similar, so I'm gonna make them where they're different. So after you got a fish hooked and you're reeling it, what's your favorite fish to reel in after you've got them hooked? Your favorite fish to catch?
My favorite fish to catch, bar none, is a smallmouth.
Smallmouth. I figured you were going to go there.
Yep.
Yeah. So we didn't get into the whole river thing and just your knowledge on that. I've watched several videos, and I know Jeff Little films you quite a bit and does a lot of stuff, and you've got a lot of content out there that you've put out, and a lot of content that other people have filmed with you talking or fishing. And if you guys that are listening, I'm a YouTube podcast junkie, so I'm looking and I'm watching and I'm listening to stuff all the time, trying to figure out that, trying to make myself a better angler. And I just enjoy watching the content. It's not,
I do too.
A lot of times it's just it's entertainment to see how people are fishing and to see how they have their kayaks rigged. And,
exactly.
I watched y'all tear your stuff off of yours and put, Jeff was re-rigging his, and, I have fun watching that, because then I get an idea like, oh, well, that's a good idea. It won't really work on my Bonafide, but I can change that and fab that up myself and come up with
figure
something
out how to make
similar.
it work.
Yeah.
That's what you want. I want, when you're doing stuff like that, it stimulates somebody else's mind to say, hey, and that's how things get better and better. That's how you can extrapolate, and it becomes a better product as it goes on. It's just research and development.
You got it. All right, so the next one is kind of similar to the last one, but this one is your favorite fish to fish for. And so I like to say, what's your, the chess game of making that fish bite? What would be your favorite of that?
Man, I'm going to be a broken record, ain't I? Man, I love smallmouth fishing. I grew up on smallmouth fishing, and I've seen all their moods. They can just be the hardest thing to catch, and they can be the easiest thing to catch sometimes. And it's just, I know it better than anything. But as far as the species, any of the black bass species, I am a bass fisherman. I've gone for muskie, and don't get me wrong, I love the muskie fish, and I've caught some big muskie, and I've caught them targeting them, and I've caught them by accident while I'm smallmouth fishing. But as far as, just if I'm going to go fishing and somebody says, hey, let's go fishing, I'm going to go smallmouth fishing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Or something with bass. I love going to Texas for largemouth. Now that runs a close second. If I'm in Texas, it's largemouth. There's some big ones down there.
Yeah, the closest I've got is Toledo Bend. Half of that's Louisiana, half of it's Texas, or Louisiana side, Texas side. But that's as far as I've gone bass fishing. So I'm looking forward to
Kingdom next month, man.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list place. I'm going to go down there, and I just love to catch one in the teens. I hope it happens one of these days. That's what I'm looking for. I want a 13 or better. I want to get up in the teens.
What is your biggest to date on largemouth?
11.4.
11.4. All right.
I've got 11.4 and 11.2, 10.8, and I've got 6 or 7 over 9.
Yeah. My biggest is 9.8. I can't remember if it was 9.8 or 9.8,
that's
9, something
one.
like that. It was in the mid 9s anyway.
Yeah.
But all right. So what about your favorite fish to eat?
Now that's a tough one, because I like a lot of different fish, like seafood. I think my favorite, man, it's going to be close. Snook is probably my favorite fish to eat.
Okay.
I love walleye, and I'll put it out there. I love walleye, but there's something about snook, man. It's just the way it tears apart, and it's just got big quarter-sized flakes, and it's so mild, and it's a really, really good fish.
I don't know that we've ever had anybody that says snook, but I don't know that I've ever had a snook. So,
well, see,
I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's hard. You can only catch them during the season, and you're only allowed one. So, not a lot of people. They used to call them soap fish because they tasted like soap, but they figured out that if you take the skin off of them and fillet them and take the skin off of them, they're the best to eat.
It cuts that out. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So what about when you're fishing, your favorite fishing snack?
Favorite fishing snack? Well, I like beef jerky, but I've been trying to get away from it because it's got a lot of sodium in it, and I'm older than dragon turds, so I've got to watch my health. I like the beef jerky, but it's going to have to be peanut butter.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere without peanut butter. I get the little snack peanut butters and Ritz crackers, and I'm fine. I can live for days on peanut butter.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I always have that. I started buying the ones with honey and peanut butter, and man, I'm addicted to those things. But I left the house to go to Murray on Thursday morning. I was packing up all my stuff Wednesday, and my wife's like, well, what are you going to eat? I'm like, well, I got 2 loaves of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a jar of jelly. I said, I'm set. I said, I can eat peanut butter and jelly for a week. I said,
you and Matt Ball, every house we stay in, if you look in the refrigerator, there's jelly and there's peanut butter.
That's it.
And I mean, I can take peanut butter and cheese. I can take peanut butter and jelly. It's what I feel like that day, but it's always going to be peanut butter.
Yeah, she said, what are you going to eat for breakfast? I said, peanut butter and jelly. Don't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Get something in your belly so I can fish. I have to make myself stop and drink and eat, because it's like, that tournament mindset, you're just fishing and you look up. I'm like, how is it 12:30? And I haven't, how is it 12:30 already,
And why is my gut hurting? Why am I hungry? All of a sudden you're hungry.
And why do I have a headache? I haven't drank anything, haven't eaten anything.
Exactly. You got a headache. I joke around because if the fish aren't biting, my boat is usually clean. But if they're biting, I've got snack wrappers laying everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've got them figured out, and I'll eat that cake right here. And I'll sit around and I'll do this. But if I'm not on the fish, I got 15 rods behind me, and there ain't a paper or nothing in the bottom of my kayak.
All right, everybody, there you go. If Jody's comes to the ramp and his kayak is clean, then don't follow him out the next day.
Well, I get told a lot. They watch me at the ramp, so when I come in, I've only got, because sometimes I'll only take 3 or 4 rods with me, and they go, well, we're following him because he's got them dialed in.
Yeah. I
had a guy come behind me one time after a tournament. I was going back to the ramp, and I was on this pattern, and it was Toledo Bend. And it was just one of those patterns where if you didn't do it just right, you wasn't going to catch fish. And there was 2 guys following me to that ramp. They see me at a gas station. I didn't know it at the time. But when I was coming back to the ramp, one of the guys said, well, I'll never follow Jody Queen to a ramp ever again, because he zeroed that tournament.
Yeah, you can't catch other people's fish. You can't. It doesn't matter. No, it's going to throw you off. Just go do your own thing.
And you'll get frustrated. You'll get spun out. I'm doing the same thing. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
It's always a little different. All right. What about your favorite body of water?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Well, and it's I'll tell you what my favorite body of water is, but it's not because of it's the best fishing. I love Caddo Lake. Now, I know everybody thinks I'm going to say the Susquehanna River, but I love the Susquehanna. Don't get me wrong, but I go up there and I catch fish, and it's fun. I love it. It's the love of my life to catch smallmouth. But there's something about Caddo Lake. When you get on that lake and you get back in those cypress trees, there's like just highways. I mean, you can get back there, you can paddle through all the 300-400-year-old cypress trees, and it's 6 feet deep all the way around them. And you can go, you're paddling through the forest is what you're doing. And it's just, it's an amazing, amazing place. And it's got big fish in it. Yes. Yeah. I always see, there's no other place that I've fished that is like that lake. It's unique for me. I mean, Beastino is right around the corner, and it's kind of the same, but it's not like not like Caddo. Yeah, so 2022, when I went to Toledo Bend for the Hobie BOS, I think MLF was on Caddo, and I stopped there. I was because I went on Wednesday. I think they were starting on Wednesday. I stopped there, and I was stopped at the ramp they were launching from, but it was like 3 a.m. I had driven all night, and I was like, I gotta stop. I was like, I'm just going to sleep here and watch them launch at this, and then the gate was locked, and I just decided to just go on to Toledo Bend. So I was going to watch that, but that is definitely that's on my list. It's not that it's got the biggest fish in the world, and it's not that it's the aesthetics of just being there. Yep. It's a beautiful lake, and you can't get that everywhere. Yeah. Getting in there and paddling around those trees it's amazing. Yeah, I got the same feeling at Santee Cooper too. Just all the Spanish moss hanging down off of those things. Yeah, Santee's another one of those lakes where you can get back in those trees too, but it's not 300-year-old. No, it's not. Yeah, And I like Santee also. Yeah, that's a nice.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
We have a love-hate relationship. So
Yeah, I do with most lakes.
all right, we got 2 more. Favorite lure to throw, which I know what this is going to be already.
My favorite lure to throw is a jackhammer.
Yeah.
It is just.
So, I know you're a big Z-Man guy. Is there any other variations that you like as much as the original jackhammer? Like, do you throw the chatterbait or the minis or anything like that, or you just
there's a time and place for just about anything. I mean, there's 3 baits in the chatterbait line that I really love, and one is the Mini Max. You know, when it's November, the temps are falling, the water's cold, you know, it's clear. I'll throw a Mini Max and do really well on it. But I think what I've been throwing mostly lately, I think, is the Evo. It's got a rattle somewhere in between the jackhammer and the Mini Max. It's got a little bit tighter rattle to it, a little bit tighter action, and it's got maybe a little bit faster blade than the jackhammer.
Yeah,
and the colors.
Good things about that. Yeah.
Great. But I've been throwing that thing. It's been doing pretty good. Those new chatter spikes. Yeah.
You like those? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And colder water what's in the 50s or something like that. That chatter spike, it's just got that little wiggle tail, you know, it's not displacing too much water.
Right.
As the water warms up a little bit, I'll go to a bigger thumpier tail. You know, if I'm fishing really muddy water, I'll put a thumpier tail on it. But, you know, that bait is designed it's a noisy bait already. So, you know, I mean, it doesn't need a big thumping tail like those or, you know, a diesel minnow or something like that on the back of it all the time. So I throw the chatter spike because you can get about probably 10 or 15 more feet out of casting that thing, man, because the tail's not grabbing the wind when you're throwing it. Because if you notice when you're throwing a chatterbait, you get a little bit of wind, it'll, you know, it'll spin out.
Kind of helicopters.
Chatter spike, you get that thing going, man, and it just sails because there's no wind resistance on that tail.
Interesting. I never really thought about how the casting distance being that much different.
You can zing them things with the chatter spike on.
Well, it's a good little nugget for those of you guys that are still listening. So
try that out, man.
I will.
Yep.
I'll try it out Saturday. That's not what I'm catching them on, but I'm in some water. I'm in some muddy water that it's probably going to work. So I've got a spot as long as I can get to it first, because I know I don't know that it's going to be a popular spot, but this lake doesn't have very many. Water? Yeah, this lake doesn't have very many muddy outlets, and you know, there's one big swamp area, so that's where I found my fish at, was up in a big swamp area. Up in the creek is a big hole. It's about well, it's Sharon Harris, so it's North Carolina, not the Harris chain.
Yeah. So
Sharon Harris.
Go up the power plant side, man, and throw that daggone orange with a black blade, man.
Yeah, that side's good too.
Yeah,
I fished that earlier. Yeah,
I've been up there that beaver dam, boy. I've murdered some fish around that beaver dam in the head of that arm.
Yeah, so that's where I'm up past. I'm up past the bridge in the swamp.
I'm telling everybody, Robert.
Oh, that's all right. This doesn't come out till after the. This doesn't come out till after the tournament. No, you're good. This doesn't come out till after the tournament. So, I'm actually catching them on a Nico rig, wacky worm, and just bringing it with that current through that big hole. Yeah. And I went up there yesterday and I casted 4 times. I caught a 18.5 and an 18, and I put my rod back in and I rode back to the ramp. I didn't want to keep catching them. So, but I think there'll be enough. If I can get 90, I'll be more than happy. So.
Oh yeah, that'll be a good bag.
We'll see. And if it's not up there, there's plenty of wood and that shallow stuff. I'm gonna throw spinner baits and some jackhammers around, all that stuff. I think I'll be all right up there.
I haven't been there in a couple of years. Is the grass starting to come back in there?
No.
Man.
There's
I
even
don't
less.
know.
Like that big, even the sawgrass, that was all around
Yeah.
even that's going away. That like
Man.
it's still there, but it's not thick like it was. And I've been fishing Harris for 14 years, and also I duck hunt Harris too.
Yeah.
And so the ducks are not in there like they used to be, and the hydrilla's almost all gone. There's a couple sets of lily pads you can find if you know where to look, but they're not even big. But the stuff that is there up in the swamp, it's already greening up. There is some stuff that's already greening up, so I think that's going to hold some fish up there. So
Well, I hope
I
it
know.
comes.
I know Hank. If I don't know if he's signed up for it, but Hank Vajon, he'll be up there in that muddy water for sure.
Oh yeah.
But there'll be a few
He'll be
guys
there
up
with
there.
his
But
Popar.
oh yeah, he will. He will.
loves his
Hey,
Popar,
he
boy.
does. Yeah,
Yep.
he does. And
That's
Harris
good
is a
with him,
good
too.
spot. Harris is a good spot. I've caught a lot of big fish on Harris with a popar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So last one, favorite time of the year to fish.
My favorite time of the fish is right now. I love it when the water temps hit the low 50s, and low mid upper 50s, anywhere in there. I love that temperature, and even into the low 60s. Fish are moving. I mean, they've got to do their thing. So they're either going to be moving or they're going to be sitting still on a nest somewhere. Once that water reaches a little bit warmer, but I love that 53 to 63 range. I love it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's probably right there in my favorite.
Smallmouth, I like 43 to 55.
Yeah.
43 to 53, whatever.
Well, Jody, man, we're at the end of our time, but man,
I've had a great time, dude.
Anytime you want to come back on, I love talking fishing and I love picking
Yeah,
people's brains and man, I've had a good time tonight talking with you. So,
well, maybe next time we'll get into some river fishing stuff.
Yeah, I'm down with that. So,
cool.
I know you have I really wanted to get into some of your artwork too and talk to you some about that. I had a whole list of stuff, but I knew we would never get to it all. So
that's because I'm a blabbermouth, man. I get off on
No, it was great. But also too, I know that me and Cam had talked earlier in the week, and he was excited about having you on, and I'm sure he probably got called in or
yeah. He called me. I was still on the water and said, he said, I don't know if I'm gonna make it or not because I just something. Yeah. He didn't tell me what was going on. I didn't ask him. I just said, well, I understand. But
it could have been something else, but he stays on call a lot too, and sometimes he gets called into emergencies. He's a maintenance over a huge shopping center, so things like that happen. But my point is I know he's going to want to, have you back on, and he was excited. We have been, we were both excited about having you on. So,
oh man, I was excited.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd be honored to come back, man. You just let me know.
Well, we'll do it, and then we'll have to meet up either, at Cashion at one of the events down there, or get on Harris or Jordan. I'll tell you, Jordan is, man, that lake. That's probably Harris used to be my favorite, but now, man, Jordan is.
I've heard Jordan has been doing really, really well.
Yeah, it's
Randleman's
nice.
Open now too, but the line is probably out the parking lot and up the road a half a mile.
Yes, we did a tournament in Randleman. It was Central Carolina's kayak fishing. It was their first tournament, and I think we had 72 people, and we all went out of that top ramp.
Yeah,
man, you ought to seen that. It was a daggone. We were excited just because that many people showed up.
Yeah. But, I bet that was crazy.
It was crazy, but it was great though. But I like Randleman, McIntyre. I mean, we're surrounded by Great Lakes here in Central and all of North Carolina.
Yeah, that whole area is great, man. Jordan, was it Baden and
Baden, High Rock. Yeah,
High Rock.
Norman's not too far, and then
I'm not a big fan of Norman.
Yeah, well, it's if you can catch a early morning
river, I like it in the river.
Yeah, if you can catch an early morning largemouth and you get a good anchor fish, you can do okay. Yeah, I did my best there. I came in 6th in the state qualifier for the bass a couple years ago, but that was I caught a big largemouth early.
Man, that kicker in Norman goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. I couldn't get rid of like a 13-incher though. If I could have caught one more 16, I would have been right there. But it was one of those days I couldn't catch anything bigger. I kept catching 12.5s and nothing to upgrade. But you know how that goes.
I've been there, man, many a time.
Well, look, you want to tell people how to follow you, any of your social media stuff, any of your sponsors. Go ahead and shout your social media and your sponsors out and.
Yeah, man, you guys can go on Jody Queen Fishing through all my pages are Jody Queen Fishing. That's Instagram, that's Facebook, Threads, YouTube. Just plug in Jody Queen Fishing and you'll find me there. We talked about Cashion, guys. If Cashion rods are the real deal. They're made here as much as 90% in USA. I know you got to get guides and stuff elsewhere. I'm not sure how all that works, but they wrap their own blanks. They do it by hand right there in North Carolina and Sansom, is it?
Sanford. Mm-hmm.
Sanford, right. And if you want to support your local economy and keep it at home, that's the way to go, man. Buy local, and they are local. Z-Man, everybody knows I'm a big fan of Z-Man. The baits are tough, and if you're on a budget, those baits last a long time. I really, I like to give them to kids because they can't run through them real fast. They last a long time, and a lot of people don't have the money to keep going out and buying baits. So I love that aspect of Z-Man. But they also have great baits like the chatterbait, and which that's what I throw a lot. But the Mag Fatty Z, the worms, they're great. Z-Man's just a great bait company. They're out of South Carolina. But yeah, Cashion Rods and Z-Man and Dakota Lithium batteries and fishing online. If you guys need anything from Z-Man, anything at Z-Man, Fishing Online has a great selection. Yak Attack, they have all the Yak Attack stuff there that you need to get your kayak. There's just so many sponsors. I could go through the whole thing and tell you a story about all of them because I love being a part of the products that I use because I believe in those products. So I don't have any sponsors that I don't believe in. This new sponsor, these Hobie Eyewear, if you're not familiar with them, check them out. Hobie Eyewear has these, I don't know if I don't have them on me, but the Everglades and the Snook, they have lenses. They're called Sightmaster lenses. And other glasses, there's other glasses out there that have similar products, but the Hobie Eyewear, they have the nylon lenses. They're scratch resistant, but that Sightmaster lens, man, is just on cloudy days, it brightens everything up. And I used them coming in. It was pouring the rain coming into this to pre-fish down here. Have you ever wore your glasses in a rainstorm?
Oh yeah.
Man, they cut the glare out, dude. You can drive, you can see everything, but those Sightmaster lenses for driving they're awesome. But I'm not going to bore you with the rest of them.
Oh no, you're fine.
Now, catch boards. Everybody knows catch. All the tournaments have gone to them. Hobie boats, kayaks, Hobie kayaks. Man, I've been in a 360 now for I think 3 or 4 years now. I mean, for me as a tournament angler, they're just a great platform to fish from. They're wide open in the bow. The 360 drive is amazing, especially if you're around docks and stuff like that, because you can maneuver them so well. But when you throw a torpedo motor on the back of them, they're a totally different animal. I used 1103 on mine, and man, I can turn that thing on a dime. It's a 14-foot boat, and you can just turn it on a dime. But yeah, those products, I believe in all those products, and I don't think I'm not steering you wrong by telling you to try them out.
No, that's a good list of products. So definitely so. Well, Jody, man, I sure appreciate you taking the time to come on. And like I said, we're going to get you back on here and talk some more about
Good.
some river fishing and,
Nice.
and your art. But man, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate
Me too.
it.
I had a great time, man. Robert, you have a good evening, buddy. And thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. You do the same. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, guys, that's Jody Queen, and man, what a great representative for the sport of kayak bass fishing, and just man, I had such a good time talking to him. Learning some little nuggets here and there, and what a faith story as well. So, man, that's a great episode. I hate it that Cam missed it, but I'm kind of glad I had Jody all to myself. So that's a little bit selfish on my part, but what a great episode. So I'm going to go ahead and pray for everybody and get us out of here. So dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to get your word out. Thank you for letting us have Jody on tonight, and please let his story and his words reach people and touch them where they're at, and help us all get people closer to you. Forgive us of our sins, and watch over all the anglers as we head into the season. Make sure everybody remembers, help them remember to get that life jacket on at PFD, so we can all get home safely to our loved ones, and just watch over all the anglers and all the different tournament organizations, and give us the strength to for our words and actions to bring people closer to you. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Hey, well, you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Please consider supporting those that support us. Jade's Jigs lead-free finesse tackle. Use promo code FNF10 at jadesjigs.com for 10% off. Save your outdoors. Stop losing your gear. Use promo code FNFP15 at saveyoutdoors.com for 15% off. Omnia Fishing. Check out Premium, Premium Pro, and their Ambassador program. Use promo code FNF10 for 10% off at omniafishing.com. And if it's your first order, use promo code FNF15 for 15% instead. Mr. B Lure Company. High-quality handmade baits made right here in the U.S. MrBLureCompany.com. Use promo code faithnfishn for 15% off your first purchase. Get outdoors, pedal, and paddle. Check them out at the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or at shopgetoutdoors.com for all your paddling and cycling needs. And Nocqua Adventure Gear, lighting, power, and all the connectors at Nocqua.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.